In the bustling heart of New San Francisco, a place where neon lights flickered like fireflies and the aroma of synthetic coffee filled the air, a small cafe called Bite Brew stood out among the towering cybernetic skyscrapers. It was the kind of joint where the baristas were part-time AIs, programmed for both caffeine creation and comedy. The cafe was known for its oddball drinks. The hollow mocha glowed in the dark, and the cyber spinach smoothie tasted like regret. Jack Ryder, a former military cyborg, shuffled into the cafe on his newly upgraded limbs, two sleek mechanical legs that hummed softly with every step. He'd been rebuilt after a political betrayal had left him legless, but he had learned to embrace the absurdity of his situation. With a grin, he approached the counter. "Good morning, Jack." "What's your pleasure today?" chirped Vera, the AI barista, her voice chirpy as ever. She had a penchant for quirky humor, which Jack appreciated. "Let's see. I'll take a double shot of not exploding espresso, please," he replied, his smile widening. "Coming right up. Or, maybe not, if my circuits short-circuit again." Vera winked, producing a cup that fizzed dangerously. Jack laughed, knowing full well that if there was an explosion in this cafe, he'd probably be blamed for it. The morning was bright, and Jack was feeling optimistic about his latest mission, revenge. Just yesterday, he'd stumbled upon the list of politicians involved in his betrayal. Revenge was a dish best served cold, and Jack was all about cold coffee and calculated plans, but as he took a seat by the window, savoring his drink and scanning the vibrant streets, everything changed in an instant. The door swung open, and a crowd of panicked patrons poured in. An explosion rocked the street outside, sending shards of glass and metal flying. Jack's instincts kicked in. He didn't need to think. He moved, with a speed that belied his mechanical enhancements. He jumped to his feet, dashing towards the door. Outside, chaos reigned. A politician's car had exploded, and in the center of it all stood Senator Gray, the very man Jack had on his hit list. Gray was stumbling, dazed but unharmed, and all around him lay injured people. "Get back! Get back!" the senator shouted, waving his arms as if that would somehow stem the tide of panic. Jack's body responded before his mind caught up. He sprinted into the fray, pushing people aside, his legs a blur of metal and muscle. He reached the senator just in time, shoving him to the ground as a second explosion rang out, a sound so loud it could rattle your teeth. Jack landed heavily on the ground, the senator sprawled on top of him. For a moment, they were a tangle of limbs and chaos. You're the one who," Gray started, but Jack cut him off. Yeah, save it for your campaign speech." Jack grunted, trying to push the senator off him while keeping his own cover. As he glanced back, the true horror struck him. The blast hadn't just injured the senator, it had been a trap, a setup that had him framed as the fall guy. Jack's pulse raced, a cocktail of adrenaline and betrayal coursing through his system. He had been framed for this disaster, and as he stood up, he could see the news drones circling above, capturing every moment of his heroism. And that was the moment everything turned upside down. In the aftermath, Jack found himself in the back of a police cruiser, cuffs around his wrists that felt tighter than the grip of a corrupt politician. The irony was not lost on him. He had gone from saving a senator to being accused of trying to blow him up. The narrative was already forming in the media, and Jack could almost hear the headlines: "Cyborg soldier turns terrorist. Once a hero, now a fugitive." Jack let out a sharp laugh. Well, isn't this just great? Days turned into weeks as Jack went underground, navigating the dark alleys of New San Francisco, a city that felt more hostile than ever. He learned to blend in with the shadows, relying on the underworld's network of hackers and cyborg fighters who, like him, had been chewed up and spit out by a system that promised protection and delivered betrayal. Jack's transformation from soldier to cybernetic warrior was both painful and empowering. He had spent years in combat, honing his skills, but now he had to learn how to use his new enhancements effectively. Each upgrade came with its own set of challenges. He grappled with the fact that every increase in strength also came with a decrease in his autonomy. His new limbs sometimes moved of their own accord, a twisted parody of his former self. One night, as he scavenged for information in a dimly lit bar, he met Lila, a sharp-witted hacker with electric blue hair and a penchant for trouble. She had been following the news about the explosion, intrigued by the bizarre turn of events surrounding Jack's life. "Nice legs," she quipped, sipping her neon drink. "Did you pick those up at a bargain bin?" Jack smirked. "At least I didn't get stuck with the default model, like you." Their banter soon turned into a partnership. Lila had the tech skills he needed, and together they began plotting their revenge against those who had wronged him. She helped him access classified files and expose the very system that had betrayed him. Each success fueled Jack's fire for vengeance, but as he delved deeper, he began to notice something unsettling. "Jack," Lila said one night, pulling up blueprints on a holographic screen. "They're planning something big. A new initiative that involves cyber control of the populace. Your enhancements, they might be part of it." "What do you mean?" Jack asked, the implication sending chills down his spine. "They're not just enhancing soldiers, they're building an army of compliant citizens. They're manipulating the very technology that you're using to fight back." The revelation hit Jack like a ton of bricks. The same tech that empowered him was also a tool of oppression. He wasn't just fighting against the corrupt politicians, he was also battling the very essence of what he had become. As they strategized, Jack also reconnected with Rex, his old friend and ex-mercenary, who provided a moral anchor in the increasingly murky waters of vengeance. "You're not just a weapon, Jack," Rex reminded him one evening, the weight of their shared history evident in his voice. "Don't let them turn you into something you're not." But as Jack steeled himself for revenge, the lines between man and machine began to blur. His body responded autonomously in fights, moving with a precision that frightened him. He realized that the anger that drove him was becoming less about justice and more about the technology that had changed him. The night of the gala arrived, a high-stakes event that gathered the elite of New San Francisco, including his targets, Senator Gray and the CEO of the corporation that had rebuilt him. Dressed in a sleek suit that cleverly concealed his enhancements, Jack felt a thrill of excitement mingled with dread. "Let's make some noise," Lila whispered, her fingers flying across her tablet, ready to disrupt their security systems. As Jack entered the venue, he was a ghost, blending seamlessly into the crowd. Laughter and chatter filled the air, but behind the polished smiles, he sensed the underlying tension. He was here to confront not just the senator, but the very forces that sought to control him. When he finally confronted Gray, it felt like stepping into the lion's den. "You think you can just walk away from the mess you made?" Jack said, his voice low and dangerous. The senator's eyes widened. "You're not supposed to be here. This is a mistake." "No, Gray. This is where the mistake ends." With that, everything fell apart. Jack launched into action, a whirlwind of precision and speed, but not just fueled by rage. This time, he had purpose. As he fought, he felt the control slip from him, his enhancements responding to the chaos in a way he hadn't anticipated. Just when he thought he had the upper hand, his body seized up, caught in the grip of an automated protocol. He faltered, momentarily losing himself as memories of his past flooded his mind, the betrayal, the pain, the loss. The very tech that had saved him was now binding him tighter than any physical chain. Jack. Fight it! Lila shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. He focused on her words, on the connection they had forged. With a surge of willpower, he broke free, using every ounce of strength he had to regain control. He realized then that he was more than a weapon, he was a man who chose to fight for himself. The crowd gasped as Jack tore through the remaining security, exposing Gray's true nature to the public. As the senator tried to spin the narrative, Jack faced him, a blend of humor and defiance in his voice. "Looks like the only thing blowing up tonight is your career, Gray." The dust settled, and Jack stood tall, not just as a fighter, but as a symbol of resistance. He had transformed his rage into something greater, reclaiming not just his agency but also his humanity. In the end, Jack didn't just dismantle a corrupt system, he found a new purpose, one that embraced both his past and the path ahead. As he walked away from the gala, the stars above twinkled like a million tiny hopes, and Jack couldn't help but chuckle. Next time, I'm definitely ordering the "No Explosions Please" special. As Jack strode away from the chaos of the gala, he felt a strange mix of exhilaration and relief. The adrenaline still coursed through his veins, but now it was joined by a newfound clarity. He had faced the demons of his past and emerged not only intact but invigorated. The weight of his mission had shifted from mere revenge to something more profound, the fight for autonomy and justice in a world determined to control him. Lila caught up with him outside, her eyes bright with excitement. "Did you see the look on Gray's face? Priceless. You turned the whole thing around. The media will eat this up." Jack chuckled, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. "Yeah, well, I think I gave him more than he bargained for. That'll teach him to underestimate a cyborg." As they walked, Rex fell in step beside them, his expression a mix of pride and concern. "You did good, Jack. But this isn't over. They'll come after you." "Let them," Jack replied, his voice steady. "They've already tried. I won't back down now. I'm not just some puppet for them to control." Rex nodded, and together they made their way through the night, the streets alive with the hum of augmented life. As they entered a nearby alley, Jack glanced at the glowing signs and digital billboards, his heart swelling with determination. This city was alive, a mix of chaos and beauty, and it was time for him to reclaim it. The trio found a safe house, a rundown warehouse tucked away from the watchful eyes of the authorities. Inside, the atmosphere was charged with a sense of camaraderie as fellow rebels greeted them. Jack introduced Lila and Rex to his newfound allies, a mix of hackers and cyborg fighters, each with their own stories of betrayal and resistance. "Welcome to the fight," said Maya, a sharp-eyed leader with an uncanny knack for strategy. "We've been watching you, Jack. What you did tonight wasn't just a win for you. It was a win for all of us. But we need to harness that momentum." Jack looked around at the determined faces before him. This was his new family, forged from shared pain and a common purpose. "What's the plan?" he asked, ready to dive deeper into the fight against the corrupt. Maya leaned in, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. "We need to expose the corporation behind the tech. They've got plans for the city that could enslave people on a scale we can't even imagine. We hit their supply lines and take back the tech they've used to oppress us." "Sounds like a plan," Jack said, his resolve hardening. The stakes were higher than he had ever imagined, but he knew he had the skills, the team, and the determination to make a difference. For the next few days, they trained hard. Jack pushed himself, integrating his mechanical limbs with the raw instinct of a soldier. He sparred with Rex, who challenged him to hone his abilities without relying solely on his enhancements. Lila worked tirelessly, breaking into systems to gather intel on the corporation's operations. As they mapped out their targets, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. The fight was no longer just personal, it was about liberating others from the chains of manipulation. Each success only fueled his desire to dismantle the oppressive structures that governed their lives. One night, as they reviewed their plans under the flickering fluorescent lights of the warehouse, Lila suddenly looked up from her screen. "I've got something. A shipment's coming in tomorrow night, a load of tech components meant for the mind control project." Jack's heart raced. This is it. If we hit them hard, we can disrupt their entire operation. Exactly, Maya replied. We'll intercept the shipment, take what we can use, and expose their plans. This will send a message. With the plan set, they prepared for the mission. Jack felt the familiar rush of excitement and anxiety swirl within him. He had faced impossible odds before, but this was different. This time, he wasn't alone. He was part of something bigger. As night fell, they slipped through the city, shadows moving with purpose. Jack felt the thrill of the chase as they approached the loading docks, a stark contrast to the glitzy gala where he had made his name as a rebel. The air buzzed with anticipation as they neared the target. Jack led the charge, a mix of adrenaline and determination propelling him forward. The docks were eerily quiet, the only sounds being the distant hum of machinery and the occasional clang of metal. They took positions, waiting for the shipment to arrive. When the trucks rolled in, Jack's heart pounded in rhythm with the engines. He signaled to the team, and they sprang into action. Jack leapt forward, landing with a grace that belied his mechanical limbs, swiftly taking down the first guard. The element of surprise was on their side, and Jack relished the thrill of the fight. As chaos erupted around them, Lila hacked into the truck's security systems, disabling alarms and sending guards into a frenzy. Jack moved with a newfound ferocity, taking down one enemy after another, feeling more like himself than he had in ages. "Jack! Over here!" Lila shouted, waving him toward the back of the truck. "Help me with this." He dashed to her side, and together they pried open the truck's doors. Inside lay a treasure trove of technology, mind control chips, neural interfaces, everything the corporation planned to use to tighten their grip on the city. "This is it," Lila exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. "We hit the jackpot." But as they loaded the components, the sound of sirens pierced the night air. "We've got company," Rex shouted, his voice tense. Jack's stomach dropped. "We need to move, now." They scrambled to gather as much as they could, but the guards were closing in fast. Jack felt the familiar urge to run, to escape, but he wasn't going to leave anyone behind. "We can't let them take this," he shouted, determination surging through him. "Go!" Maya urged, firing a few warning shots to cover their retreat. "We'll hold them off." Jack hesitated, torn between duty and friendship. But he knew they had to get the tech out. "Let's move," he yelled, grabbing Lila's arm as they darted back into the shadows. The escape was a blur of adrenaline. They zigzagged through the maze of crates and machinery, narrowly avoiding capture as they made their way to a hidden exit. Jack's legs, enhanced for speed, propelled him forward, but the sounds of pursuit grew louder behind them. As they burst out into the open air, Jack glanced back, seeing Rex and Maya still fighting. "We can't leave them," he shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "They'll be fine. We need to get this tech to safety." Lila insisted, tugging at him. With a heavy heart, Jack turned and ran, the sounds of the battle fading into the distance. They made it to a nearby alley where they collapsed against a wall, panting and wide-eyed. "We did it!" Lila exclaimed, the thrill of success coursing through her, but Jack couldn't shake the guilt. They had come together as a team, and leaving Rex and Maya behind felt like a betrayal. "We need to regroup," he said, his voice steady but firm. "We can't abandon them." They found a safe spot, and Jack took the time to process everything. He reached out to Rex, desperate for any signal, but all he got was silence. The weight of the mission pressed on him like a physical burden, and he felt the familiar anger boiling within. Days passed, and they laid low, but Jack couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling in his gut. He had tasted victory, but it was bittersweet without his friends by his side. Lila noticed his unease. "You're still thinking about them, aren't you?" "Of course I am," he replied, his tone sharp. "We left them behind." "We did what we had to do," she argued. "We can't go back and risk getting captured ourselves. We need to plan our next move." But Jack couldn't shake the feeling of responsibility. "If we want to fight against them, we need everyone on board. I can't just sit here and do nothing." After a tense discussion, Lila finally relented. "All right, but we do this smart. We gather intel first, then go in with a solid plan." With renewed purpose, they infiltrated the underground networks, gathering information about Rex and Maya's whereabouts. Each piece of intel they uncovered brought them closer to their friends, and Jack felt the fire of determination igniting once more. Eventually, they learned that Rex and Maya had been captured and were being held in a high-security facility, a place where the corporation conducted experiments on captured rebels. It was a fortress, heavily guarded and designed to suppress any form of uprising. "We can't just storm the place," Lila cautioned, her brow furrowed with concern. "It's suicide." "No, we create a distraction," Jack replied, the gears in his mind turning. "We hit their supply lines again, create chaos, and slip in while everyone's focused on the mayhem." Lila considered this, her eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "It could work, but we need a solid plan to ensure we get in and out quickly. We can't lose anyone else." Together, they gathered their allies and outlined the mission. Jack's heart raced with a mix of hope and fear. This time, they were not just fighting for revenge, they were fighting to save their family. As night fell once again, they prepared for the operation, tension hanging in the air. Jack suited up, checking his gear and ensuring his enhancements were primed for action. He was ready to face whatever lay ahead, fueled by the thought of rescuing Rex and Maya. The night was shrouded in darkness as they approached the facility, the building looming ominously against the skyline. Jack could feel the weight of the mission pressing down on him, but he had come too far to turn back now. With precision and stealth, they moved through the shadows, slipping past guards and surveillance systems. Lila hacked into the facility's network, disabling alarms and providing a path for their entry. Jack felt the thrill of danger pulsing through him, a familiar companion as he focused on the task at hand. They reached the holding cells, and Jack's heart raced as they began to free the captured rebels. Rex and Maya were alive, but they looked worse for wear, bruised and weary, but still fighting. "Jack!" Rex exclaimed, relief flooding his face. "We thought we'd lost you." "Not a chance," Jack replied, determination solidifying within him. "We're getting out of here." As they made their way back, alarms blared throughout the facility, red lights flashing like angry fireflies. The plan had gone awry, but they pressed on, fighting their way through guards who seemed to materialize from every corner. "Keep moving," Maya shouted, her voice resolute. Jack's limbs moved with a speed and agility he hadn't felt in days, a whirlwind of power and purpose as he fought alongside his friends. Together, they tore through the facility, each victory fueling their momentum. As they neared the exit, Jack felt a surge of adrenaline. But just as they thought they were free, they were met by a wall of guards, weapons drawn and ready to fire. "Get behind me!" Jack shouted, stepping in front of Rex and Maya, ready to take the brunt of the assault. The confrontation felt like a culmination of everything he had fought against, and he was determined to protect his friends at all costs. "Jack, no!" Rex yelled, but Jack didn't waver. He was a soldier, and this was his fight. With a fierce battle cry, Jack charged, and the world around him faded into a blur. The guards opened fire, but he ducked and weaved, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to avoid the onslaught. Each move felt instinctual, a dance of destruction as he fought to create a path for his friends. "Now!" Lila shouted, pushing through the chaos to activate a nearby emergency override. The doors leading to freedom slid open, and Jack felt a rush of relief. "Go! I'll hold them off," he bellowed, even as he felt the weariness creeping in. He knew they had to escape, but the thought of leaving them behind gnawed at him. "No way, Jack!" Rex shouted back, his voice resolute. "We're not leaving you." With one last surge of strength, Jack fought back against the guards, but he felt the weight of the battle take its toll. Just as he thought he might fall, Rex and Maya flanked him, covering him as they pushed their way through the oncoming chaos together. Rex shouted, and with that, they burst through the doors, escaping into the night. They ran through the darkened streets, hearts pounding as the sounds of pursuit echoed behind them. The city pulsed with life, and Jack felt a surge of exhilaration mixed with relief. They were free, together again, but the fight was far from over. Once they found a safe place to hide, they caught their breath and shared stories of their harrowing experiences. Jack felt a bond deeper than he had ever known. They were more than just a team, they were family. "Jack," Maya said, her voice steady but filled with concern. "What's next?" "We've exposed them, but they'll retaliate. We regroup and plan our next move," Jack replied, his resolve solidifying. "We need to bring the fight to them. This ends with us taking down their operation for good." As the dawn broke, casting a golden hue over the city, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey had transformed him from a soldier seeking revenge into a leader fighting for liberation. Together, they would expose the truth and reclaim their city from the grips of corruption. In the days that followed, they devised a strategy that would not only dismantle the corporation's plans but also rally the citizens of New San Francisco. They distributed information, spreading the truth about the mind control initiative and the corrupt politicians behind it. Jack found himself in front of crowds, speaking passionately about their fight for freedom. "We are not just cyborgs or rebels, we are people, united against oppression. Together, we can take back our city and our future." The response was electric. As word spread, more people joined their cause, those who had suffered under the corporation's iron grip, those who had felt the sting of betrayal, and those who simply wanted to reclaim their autonomy. Jack felt a surge of hope, knowing they were no longer alone in this fight. The final confrontation loomed on the horizon. They would storm the corporation's headquarters, disrupt their operations, and expose the truth once and for all. Jack stood shoulder to shoulder with his friends, the bond they had forged unbreakable. As they made their way to the facility, tension filled the air, but Jack felt more confident than ever. "We're ready," he said, his voice steady. "This is our moment." With a fierce battle cry, they charged forward, ready to face whatever came next. Jack felt the thrill of adrenaline rush through him, a reminder of everything he had fought for. They were more than just soldiers, they were warriors, ready to reclaim their destiny. As they broke through the facility's defenses, Jack led the charge, a whirlwind of strength and purpose. He fought alongside his friends, each victory igniting the fire of rebellion within the hearts of those around them. They were not just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for the freedom of everyone who had suffered under the corporation's reign. With each step, they pushed deeper into the heart of the facility, determined to reach the control center and bring their mission to fruition. Jack could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, but he also felt an unwavering strength within. In the final moments of the battle, they burst into the control room, where the CEO of the corporation stood, flanked by guards. Jack's heart raced as he faced the man who had orchestrated so much pain. "This ends now," he declared, his voice steady. The fight was fierce, but with his friends by his side, they quickly overwhelmed the guards. Jack felt the exhilaration of victory surging through him, a reminder of everything they had fought for. In the end, it was Jack who faced the CEO, his voice low and filled with resolve. "You thought you could control us. You thought you could use technology to manipulate and oppress. But we are more than your experiments, we are the future, and we will not be silenced." As the CEO realized his defeat, Jack felt a sense of closure. He had turned his pain into purpose, transforming the anger that had once consumed him into a force for good. With the facility under their control, they broadcast the truth to the city, exposing the corporation's corrupt practices and the lies that had held them captive for so long. The response was immediate. Protests erupted, and citizens rallied to join the fight against the tyranny that had silenced them for far too long. As Jack stood on the steps of the facility, watching the crowd surge with hope and determination, he knew they had truly turned the tide. They had reclaimed their city and their freedom, and together, they would forge a new path. With Lila, Rex, and Maya by his side, Jack felt a sense of belonging he had never known before. They were a family, united not just by their struggles but by their shared vision of a brighter future. "Let's make sure this never happens again," Jack said, his voice filled with conviction. "Together, we'll build a city where everyone is free to be themselves, where technology empowers rather than controls." As the sun rose over New San Francisco, casting a golden light over the streets, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. The fight was not over, but they had taken the first step toward a brighter future, together. And as they stood united against the rising sun, Jack couldn't help but smile. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but he was ready to face it all, knowing that they were stronger together.